this is our second fireside chat. Eleanor Rust is marketing director at Rock, Paper, Scissors, Inc., a position that lets her use every part of her diverse skill set in problem solving, research, design, and writing to get the word out about RPS's media relations work with cutting music innovators. They put together an amazing conference called Music Tectonics that happens every year in Santa Monica. If you're in music tech, if you're in the music industry, I would definitely go and check that out. Eleanor will be interviewing John Williamson, the CEO and founder of Songfinch, a platform that gives customers and brands the ability to unlock and leverage the power of music through customization. It's great to see John. We knew each other from a different lifetime ago, but please welcome both of our fireside chat.
Yay, yay.
All right, thank you, Daniel, for such a great introduction and such a fantastic event. 2112 is always such a connector in this space, and it's great to meet all of you. So welcome, John. Thank you for sitting down with me. I think this is going to be a great transition from some of the more music-focused programming to talk about music technology, and I'm eager to dive into how Songfinch kind of works in that space. And I want to think a little bit about the founders who will be pitching their big ideas in just half an hour. Can you look back to when Songfinch was just a big idea like theirs and talk a little bit about the steps you took to launch, to turn that great idea into a business model and beyond?
For sure. I got to go way back, actually. Songfinch has kind of been like two kind of business timelines. End of 2016, so 2016, 17, 18, 19 was basically relatively rudderless. Like grind, try to figure out something that could potentially scale. Trying a bunch of ideas, essentially like the concept of kind of taking a song and going direct to consumer from a personalized song standpoint didn't exist. So you had the challenge of basically kind of erecting a brand new business vertical, and there were no other competitors in the space for years and years. Basically, no one believed that it was a large enough space. Seemed like super niche. So, we're responsible for like all of the customer education for everything. Like it's one of those things when you look at like the idea of like this dream of like having a company without competitors. It seems like really sexy and really fun, but it's actually not at all. Because you're then responsible for essentially creating all of the rules and educating all of the users and convincing somebody that, something that never existed before is worthwhile, worth time and attention.
Can you talk a little bit about so you mentioned, customer education is a big part of it. What about building your platform, building your workflow? That's also a new thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that went?
Yeah, so this is startup 5 for me, and I happen to, previous to this, work on other kind of two-sided marketplace concepts in which you have to build the supply side, in this case, the artist community, along with the customer side at the same time, in a sense. I think something that's really forgiving in building two-sided marketplaces, especially within the music space, our musicians are generally patient, meaning like we could focus on that supply side and we could, build up a ton of different musicians that wanted to create personalized songs for end users, even though we didn't have a bunch of end users. And, eventually you start getting that ball rolling on the consumer front.
Were there some breakthrough moments on the consumer front you can talk about?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so for the first 4 years of the business, being like a music background, I've been building and operating companies in music for 24 years. So like constantly operating with like that musician or that like music person lens. Like for the first 4 years, we thought that what we were selling was personalized music, and that's where we spent all of our time, energy, and effort from a positioning standpoint. And the breakthrough was finally when we realized we're not selling personalized music, we're selling this like over-the-top emotive experience, and music just happens to be the vehicle to deliver that experience. So, you know, the breakthrough was this like positioning pivot, not a product pivot like most people go through for that epiphany or that breakthrough. So to us, it was like 2016, 17, 18, 19, we can't get it to work. 2020, we're kind of at the end and ready to shut things down. And it's like, let's flip it and try it this way. So again, still selling the same product, talking about it differently, and then going from, you know, zero to millions kind of rapidly.
That sounds like the dream, but I bet there was some nightmare in there too, growing so rapidly. Can you talk about that moment?
Ah, for sure. Like, problems are all relative, right? We all want to have problems. Like, everybody would trade the problem of like trying to deal with scale, and like our biggest issues are like, there's way too many customers and we're not sure how we're going to do this. Or like, turn off marketing, it's going too well. Like, those were things that we actually went through. Yeah, like just to put it into perspective, it's like we went from, we're talking about 24,000% 3-year revenue growth.
Wow.
So it's going from 140,000 in a year to 1.5 million to 5.5 million to 37 million. So like basically what you do at that point is like make sure that the walls and the ceiling don't fall in on you, and you kind of throw anything that you can at the problem. They're not necessarily like scalable solutions every single time, but they're like, hey, let's hire a bunch of people to answer like customer emails, or let's hire a ton of music supervisors to like read the briefs that are coming in manually from customers and choose artists to create them.
Were there tech solutions you applied as well? Did you have to grow back
Yeah,
end?
for sure. I mean, again, it's kind of a trade-off, right? Like during the scale period, it's like fulfillment, focusing over there and building tech over there. And then you get to a point where it's like, hey, we probably need to start building for the consumer at some point in time too.
Yeah, I noticed looking over Songfinch that you've got a number of ways to monetize as well as that the song itself, right? That you've got lots of add-ons, lots of ways people can engage and kind of preserve that moment. When did that come along in your product?
Yeah, I mean, so we've basically been selling the same like singular, let's call it experience the whole time. So basically you as a consumer, you come in, you pay $200, and an artist will basically take your stories and ideas and write and record an original song and deliver it within 7 days. So that's been like the core product. It's been the story that has been consistent. So you can have other customers tell that story relatively easily. And then the add-on component, it was like unit economics, you know? It's, hey, it's costing us X to acquire a new customer. We need to increase that so we're not underwater on first purchase. So then it was like, all right, there's a handful of high margin ways to kind of benefit those unit economics. As an example, it's like, hey, people want their songs after they purchase them to be within a streaming environment. So let's charge $50 to put your song on Spotify. And then you see 40% of customers begin buying that, and it's a lot of margin involved there. So then like it gets it to a point where you can actually begin scaling.
Nice. So you've mentioned, this was, you said your 5th startup?
Yeah,
and you mentioned
probably more than that, honestly.
And you mentioned some music background. Could you dig into some details and talk about some of the experiences that you really leaned on for this project? And if there's anything that was really new to you with Songfinch?
Yeah, I think what I tell everybody on my team, you know, being extremely self-aware of where I'm at, every single day for me, this is now the biggest company that I've run.
Wow.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think if you put it into that perspective, like I'm learning new things every single day. And I try to encourage the team to do the same. You know, I think as you're working for a company, regardless of growth or pacing, I always say, like, if you as an individual can kind of grow at a similar pace as the business, you'll always be like a really important component of it.
That's a really nice focus to keep.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
again, and then like think about the kind of the power in numbers around that idea
Right.
too. Like we have a 65-person staff. If every single person on the team there's personal growth that's at a similar rate as the business growth, then like what happens, you know?
Can I ask a little bit more about background? Like I noticed that you'd worked with a music licensing company before. How does that play into how Songfinch works and how licensing is handled?
Yeah. So like let's call it 2006, 2007. Like Songfinch and my last business, which was Music Dealers. I don't know if anybody's heard of that or were involved in that. But both of them were like started on big bets in regards to where music industry is going. Like Music Dealers, let's call it 2005, 2006. We eventually started the business in 2008. But the big bet was basically the future of music is going to be driven by brands. Brands are going to supplement the dollars from labels and publishers. Brands are going to be a big play in breaking independent artists, those kinds of things. And you know, during those times, like associating yourself with a big brand was still like known as like selling out. And big brands mostly at that point in time only wanted to deal with stars. But I think we were right on that bet. And ended up building Music Dealers we were like one of the first like sync companies. We ended up repping 30,000 artists from like 180 countries and ended up selling that business to Coca-Cola in 2011. And then, you know, fast forward a decade or two later, and I'm looking at the future of the industry, and I'm saying, like, cool, the brand thing played out, but what's really going on right now is, like, the role of the fan is completely changing. The idea, like, to me, the future is no longer, like, passive consumerism from the purchaser standpoint. It's all about active participation. So, you know, I believe we're really close to this world in which it's really hard to decipher who's the consumer and who's the creator, or who's the fan and who's the artist. It seems pretty crazy, but I think like we saw like a lot of that coming to life just like through Web3 stuff in 2020. And now even more so with all the Gen AI stuff that's going on. Like there is a genuine curiosity from the consumer standpoint to be part of the action.
Was there an aha moment where you saw that inflection point of sort of fans and creators merging, or are there any particular moments or trends you can single out to kind of point us where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, on the surface, people are looking at Songfinch and they're like, you built a really cute company that does songs for birthdays. Like, keep it going,
But
guy.
actually,
Yeah, like these are, like I'm sitting down with labels and publishers weekly, and these are kind of the way that we've been positioned. In actuality, like, you know, over the last 12 months, we've paid 1,200 artists that you've never heard of over $20 million. So at surface level, it's like, hey, we have this like really cool gift business. But really what we're doing is we're teaching both sides of this marketplace these behaviors that I'm talking about for the future. Like you're teaching customers when they come in to be vulnerable, to share a narrative, to essentially be songwriters without knowingly understanding that's what they're doing. And on the artist side of things, we're teaching this behavior to, instead of creating from your own experience, creating from third-person briefs as if they're your own. So you can imagine, like, you know, we've done that 300,000 times now. you're starting to see some of these patterns. You're starting to see customers be like, hey, like the output of this song was actually like not just the hard skills of the creator, but it's like inspired by these ideas in my life stories. Like you're starting to see this idea of them kind of seeing themselves as peers now, and the artist the same thing. The artists are looking like, wow, it would have been if you would have told, like we have some artists that have written 2,000 songs, like over the course of a couple years. Like anybody who's a songwriter, like that seems like impossible.
But by any measure, that makes him an expert, right? Like Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000
For sure,
hours,
you get the
right?
10,000 hours like that, for sure. But again, like, so I believe that we're kind of building this future that I'm talking about, and then we are seeing other things. Like you're seeing the Gen AI stuff take place. You're seeing like fractional ownership from songs in the market. Like these are all like forms of participation, right?
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about what you might have in mind for Songfinch participating in these trends as they grow?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now, right, is every single, and again, a lot of what we're seeing now kind of mirrors what just happened in 2020 and 21 during COVID, where like when Web3 and NFT and all these, and blockchain and all this stuff like started taking fire, everybody was like, oh, what's our Web3 strategy? And it was a bunch of like square pegs, round hole.
Just put it on the investment deck and we're good, right?
Yeah,
we're just going to put
so
those words there.
So that's what's going on with AI right now too. But I think where we're at, like contextually, like a lot of these trends and these things that are taking place, like actually from a contextual standpoint to a user make way more sense with us than anybody else. Like as an example, like we've all been on Twitter and we're seeing like all this voice cloning stuff taking place. Anybody who knows anything about music rights knows we're about to be in for some crazy war, because even like all the songs that are being used to train models are owned by dozens of copyright owners each.
Yeah, and any legislation or regulation is just going to be playing catch up.
So in our world, we've created a core product that creates new art at scale, right? We're doing 300, 500, 1,000, 1,500 new songs a day. And it's not just a song, it's also like the extremely deep kind of story data that inspired that song. And then you go full circle and you also have the customer review of that song, which is basically telling you how well the interpretation of the data into the art took place.
Wow.
So you can start to see in regards to like, we're playing a bit of a Trojan horse game up front to build something that I believe is going to be insanely powerful in regards to basically owning emotion and music and everything around it.
That is super powerful, because I don't know if you follow generative AI, you know that there's a big problem, not just with the licensing of training data. Is copyrighted data part of a training data set? But also, are you training your AI model on something that works, that people like, that makes sense? And you have that in your back pocket.
For sure. And then, so like, what does all that shit mean? Sorry. What does all that mean, basically? It means like, contextually, we are going to, like, I think we're 2 weeks away from releasing an instant song product in which basically we use a data layer to like understand every love story. So you can basically come in and answer a series of 10 questions within like a minute, and it will generate a song that feels as personalized as the ones that are being created from scratch in 10 seconds. And you don't like it, you can shuffle it and get another artist's interpretation of those inputs. And this is not replacing the artist. I think this is key. Like what we're going to see a ton of right now is we're going to see a bunch of tech bros that are going to be coming into the music space that have no connection to music. They don't understand the motivations behind artists. They're going to try to create robots versus the humans. And I think that's why everyone's so scared of new technologies. I think from our standpoint, in 20 plus years of kind of operating in this space, it's like flag in the sand. Like the future of this is going to be, how do you combine the two? The future of this is the artist community is Tony Stark. The data and the technology we're building is the Iron Man suit. You put those together, that's how you create superheroes. It's not going to be one without the other. So I encourage every single person, like we are at the stage 0 of this crazy like renaissance. And we talked about this earlier, but like right now, like we've gone through all of these changes in regards to like the medium in which music is delivered. Never have we gone through a change in which the way music is created outside of like, you know, going from, again, medium, like tape to digital audio workstations, etc. Like this is this unbelievably significant time. This is like when the iPhone comes out times 10. Like the opportunity is going to be massive for you as an individual to learn and get the out in front of everyone else. Like stage 0, like spend as much time as you can diving in, learning and understanding what's available for you right now.
I imagine some people in the room are super excited by this future, and others are still terrified.
Of course.
So can you, maybe this is getting a little sci-fi, but could you talk about what artists might be able to imagine their revenue stream being, right? You mentioned the digital revolution with streaming. That saw artists, you know, revenue from selling music plummet. Are we going to see similar changes with AI, or are there like what are some of the changes you might see like with the fan creator relations that might help us imagine a future where we aren't terrified?
For sure. I think one of the most important like roles in music to play for the future is still going to be a songwriter. I think the idea of you as a performer may change, at least in my mind. Like, again, all the stuff I'm seeing with voice cloning, all this, the willingness on the label and the publisher side too. Like, we may be hearing this general tone of like that stuff's never going to happen. I'm here to tell you that I have 2 of the 3 majors throwing artists at us right now in regards to voice cloning and everything in between. But in that world, like the best output is still going to be a real human being, like writing and penning these lyrics and recording reference vocals, and then maybe somebody else is performing your song from a modeling standpoint. But I think the idea of like the human-to-human connection going away, regardless of how smart some of these LLMs get, like I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, again, I built this entire business off of human emotion and human connection. I believe in that. I think the win is how these things get paired together. So like again, another like really cool way that we're about to use these things. I've had customers for the last 5 years basically tell me like, this is the most amazing service ever. The only thing that would be better is if I could actually hold a tune and write and sing a song myself. So I'm like, yeah, Q1 2024, you will be able to. You're going to come buy a song from us. We're going to deliver the song with you singing it. So the idea of how can you play into this idea of like this added participation? How can you, as an artist, move into this space of like blending the two and like playing into this? How do you engage further with your fans, knowing that like participation is going to be the future? Like I'll double and triple down on that fact that we're a couple years away from every major album that is released by your favorite artist. There will be songs that are inspired by customers. Like these things are all going to happen. So I think like thinking from that lens is really important right now too. It's like, how can I use technology to get closer to my people? How can I use technology to have them feel part of the action.
I love that envisioning of artists kind of welcoming people into the music making process, both in that way of influencing songwriting, but then, that there's a human songwriter behind that AI generated song that has, somebody's voice on it that they want to sing for their wife at their anniversary.
No, for sure.
Yeah. Let's push it even farther in the future. What do you see coming in the next 5 or 10 years? Is there anything you feel like people aren't paying attention to yet? Like AI has been a huge buzzword all year for both music and other kinds of creative endeavors, other less creative endeavors. Do you have your eyes on some things we're not paying attention to enough?
Yeah, look, if we're truly like 3 years away from like total AGI, well, I don't know.
That's,
it takes everything and it completely turns
that's
it on its head.
artificial general intelligence. That's kind of the imagination.
It's basically machines that are smarter than human beings. I mean, right now we're talking about artificial intelligence, and we're talking about, basically the really simple thing that's taking place right now is just with like GPUs and with compute power, like you're able to learn things at an incredible pace that a human being could not, right? And up until like a very short period ago, like those things weren't accessible based on speed and spend. And now, with all these chips and just like the evolution of this, like, you can take a person, a machine learning engineer, and a set of data, and you can create things you can see progress within a 4-week window with one individual that like would have taken you decades prior to. So I think like just thinking about those kinds of things, I think it makes the future, like the very near future, like infinite. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is like, let's even say 5 years ago, whenever we like thought about the future and we watched all these sci-fi movies and these kinds of things, like we thought that the first basically jobs or the first functions that were going to go due to robots and artificial intelligence was going to be like blue collar, lower level work. And we thought the creatives were the ones that were going to be safe and were going to rule the world. And it's actually kind of ironic that it's I believe it's the opposite. And it's like the creative components are what are getting attacked first and foremost, and the trades are like
right.
The ones that are.
They still got to wire the server rooms that are supporting all that compute. But one thing I wonder about that is if, because so many of us focus on AGI, and of course we have a lot of powerful stories about human androids in sci-fi for decades, that I wonder if the approach is to creative problems, because that's really the proof of concept, right? It's like if a computer is quote unquote smart enough to write a poem, well then maybe we can put more and more of our logistics in the power in the digital hands of a computer. But as you said, if the human connection still means we've got human songwriters at the other end of that AI song generator, maybe the creatives will.
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally what you're also going to see, especially when we're talking about the speed at which technology is developing, like we've never witnessed anything like this in regards to speed. I think you're also going to probably get equal pushback in regards to people who just want this, So I think there's going to be opportunity there, but I personally believe it's a fool's errand to dismiss technology right now when we're at such a like advantageous like zero,
All right, let's leave with one final thought. So there are a lot of singers and songwriters at the event today. If they wanted to get in on what you're building at Songfinch, are there openings in the community?
I have somebody that
Oh, yeah?
works with artists right down here. So Jake is right here. You can
Raise your hand, Jake.
you can
All
speak to him
right.
after if he's going to stick around for a little
Great.
bit. If not, you can shoot me a note too.
Yeah.
Just john@songfinch.com.
Great. And any last words for the music tech founders who are going to be pitching on the stage in just a few minutes?
No, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I think
I know. I'm excited too.
I don't know. To me, it's about like challenging impossible right now.
Yeah.
Like no idea is too big. I would actually like that would probably be my challenge is whatever the concept and idea is, how do you take it to like 2 levels beyond that and start looking at it from that perspective? One, just as an individual, you won't get bored pursuing that dream and that mission. And 2, I think that concept fits more in line of the incredible pace that we're moving at from a technology perspective.
Wow. Well, thank you for blowing our minds and taking us deep into the future, John.
Yes. Also,
Oh,
yes.
that's right. We have
No, it is my daughter's 8th birthday today. And Skylar chose to hang out with me today instead of doing something that a normal 8-year-old would like to do for her
All right,
birthday.
let's all wish Skylar a happy birthday, shall we? 1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy birthday,
birthday!
Thank you.
Thank you.